radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
All right, good evening. Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. Yeah, man. All right. Today's Tuesday, July 31st, 2018. 213 days into the new year, just 152 days left. And we are live from a bunker somewhere in beautiful downtown Burbank, California. And I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States, hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. That's right, this is Fade to Black for KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, the planets. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking? We have got a show tonight. It's going to be a conversation. Oh, man. Can't wait. Because we have very special guest, Dr. Michael P. Masters. He is here. We're going to talk about his new book. It's about to be released, called Identified Flying Objects. Who are we? Now, you got to remember, we are talking about a professor on the show tonight, a doctor, an anthropologist, and his new book is called Identified Flying Objects, and it's about, well, you know what, I'm going to let him go. If I let too much slip right now, right, you just wait. Unbelievable. It's going to be an amazing show tonight. Tomorrow night, Karen A. Dahlman is here for the much anticipated, highly anticipated Ouija board live. That's what we're going to do tomorrow night. We're going to Ouija live. We've talked about doing this for quite a while. Excuse me, man, where did that come from? You know what? That's too much coffee. We've been waiting for Ouija live for a long time. Now, I don't have a Ouija board over at the house. And I don't know, maybe after tomorrow night's show, Rita and I will change our tune on that one. I could just imagine Rita and I with a Ouija board. Yeah, she's listening down the hall right now going, church. That's a zone we don't need to go into. Thursday night is another Fader night with John Rappaport and his No More Fake Newsroom Live. And we're also going to have a very special guest here. Matthew Ryan is going to join the show because next week, Matthew is going to be up with us at ECETI for Soul Tech. I can't even believe Soul Tech is 7 days from today, 1 week from today. Is it 6 days from today? Yeah, we'll already be there. We will be at Soul Tech next Tuesday. And there you go. All right, now we're going to figure out some replays for the show and stuff like that. I don't know if we're going to do a Fader night on Thursday or not. I don't have a way to take calls. It's very complex. You know, the studio setup here is insane. It's just insane. And trying to do that in a mobile sense is difficult. I can broadcast. I just can't take calls. I guess I could have a bunch of people from Soul Tech come up and act like phone calls. A bunch of the Fadernauts. I don't know. We'll see. I have no idea. But we're ready to go for Soul Tech, and we'll be up there in a week. And I can't wait to see all of you there. I know that a lot of you that are driving in from around the country, you're probably getting ready, right? I mean, getting ready, like packing. So we'll see you guys in 1 week. And so that'll be Thursday night. Matthew Ryan's going to be here, and we're going to talk about Soul Tech and what he's going to be doing. And we're going to also take your phone calls. So that's Thursday. A great week on the show. And what I wanted to say was, okay, I've got some very complex things that I want to talk about here in just a little bit. So I want to scoot through everything here as quick as I can. Of course, on Stellar, you can go and normally... and this was just, 6 months ago, it was a different world. And I'm going to talk about that in just a bit. But 6 months ago, it wasn't about On Stellar. And I would say go and follow us on Facebook and follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio and do all of that stuff. And now everything is shifted. It's an On Stellar world today. ONSTELLAR, On Stellar. And I say that so you don't do ER. It's onstellar.com. And you need to start making changes in your life, in your social media world. It's all about On Stellar, and not only for all of those subjects that you like, but that's where all of your friends are now. You're wondering why they're not on Facebook. They're all over at On Stellar. So you need to get over there and send me a friend request. We've got the Game Changer Network over there. Rita's over there. We've got Fade to Black over there. And so get over, start writing, read the articles, post, make friends, and enjoy that social media network that has been built just for you. It's amazing technology, and we've got lots of stuff on the horizon. And right now I've got problems with YouTube. Again, YouTube has stopped streaming. Well, you can stream if you stream with them. They had a setup, and it was one of the best in the world, where you could go, and once you earn your status with them, you would get certain things that you were eligible for. And one of those is live streaming. And we, with our subscriber base, and we haven't had any guideline strikes or anything like that, we're in good standing with them. We fought for that. And so one of the things that we were eligible for was to stream to JimmyChurchRadio.com, right? They have the best streaming technologies, the best encoding and decoding, just the best codecs, the best servers. Streaming is a breeze, right? So many people out there, I mean millions, would take advantage of the live stream and run stuff over to their website and have it private for them and their friends, like you and the bunker cam, right? It's that simple. Now you can't do it. You can, but you have to live stream on YouTube at the same time. You have to make your stream public. You can't make it private or hidden and just use it on your website. Now, that's uncool. And it affects, you need to think about how many people stream onto their websites privately for whatever reason, right? But now it has to be public. It's uncool. So now I'm in a protest mode. What do? Do I go ahead and leave the bunker cam up and allow them to monetize the live stream over there? This was a private thing for you guys, right? That's what it was. It was like this little club, this little community. And it's not that if the entire world can go and just view it. I don't want that. I don't. I want it just for you. And so now I'm up against this. And it's part of this technology, this world that we live in now. It's gotten so complex. More on that in just a bit, but that's why the bunker cam isn't running tonight. I could have it run, but then I'm giving in to the man, and I'm not sure that I want to do that. So, now we can go private completely private, and I can bring in a third party, and they can manage it, and we can have a completely dedicated feed and all of that. Costs money. It's very expensive, by the way. And that was one of the things that was so cool about YouTube. It was free. But it's not that way anymore. It's uncool. And it took us a while to figure it out. And when I did, I was pissed. Oh, I'm just angry. I'm angry. I'm upset because it affects you. And that's the bottom line here. It's just nuts. Anyway, okay, moving on. You can email throughout the show, though, Jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. You can follow me on Twitter @JChurchRadio. There are some other alternatives out there. I'm not going to go... okay, well, anyway, we are looking at every single possibility. I just want to let you know. And, of course, On Stellar will have their own streaming services, and we're working on that now. And that's part of it. And I'm telling you, if YouTube and Facebook continue down the road that they're going on, all they're doing is helping On Stellar. So that part I don't mind. But in the meantime, we're in this purgatory, in this zone. And it's you that suffers. But do I give in to the man? I don't know. All right. Speaking of Facebook, breaking news, Facebook has removed a network of more than 30 Russian-linked accounts and pages involved in organizing political events in the United States. The network is the most extensive effort to interfere in American politics that Facebook has found and made public ahead of November's midterm elections. This is all according to Facebook, and it sounds good on the surface. But the removed pages only had 290,000 followers. That's all 30 pages included. All in, just 290,000 followers. It doesn't sound like that big of a scheme to me. Well, it is, but 290,000, really? The most followed Facebook pages were Aztlan Warriors, Black Elevation, Mindful Being, and Resistors. That's it, 290,000 followers, 30 pages. So there you go. Facebook is trying to show that they're doing something, I guess. I really don't care, actually. I don't. And, of course, the breaking news that I've been talking about all week. 20% discount on all offerings from River Moon Coffee. That's right. They're calling it Take a Break, a coffee break. Let's go to rivermooncoffee.com. Everything is there, including Fade to Black Blend. Doc. Just use the code Coffee Break. It's 2 words. Yeah, I know. I see that D-tube. Not interested. I'm not interested. I'm not interested in anything but us. So it's On Stellar, and we'll figure it out on our own. That's it. I am so done. Got to do everything yourself. Don't forget to get your meals for Soul Tech. I posted earlier today, and so did Rita. It's like DEFCON 5. You have until Friday, this Friday, August 3rd, to order your meals. I'm letting you know, Trout Lake is a great little town, but it's a town of like 25 people. There is no, you're not going to go, there isn't a Denny's. You're not going to go off of East City somewhere and go grab some burgers or health food or a vegan restaurant. It doesn't exist. Does not exist. And you're not going to want to leave the campus anyway. You're not going to want to leave the ranch. So get your food ordered. Unless you have, you got your camping gear and you plan on cooking in that tent for 4 days or 5 days. That's you. That's cool. I don't mind that at all. In fact, I think that's amazing. But you're going to want to order food. Okay, so get your food ordered. SoulTechGathering.com. And the meal section is right there. Go and get it done, please. I don't want to have anybody upset. Oh, I thought we could pay for it once we got here. I thought a caterer has to prep everything and bring everything to ECETI. That's what they have to do. Okay? So please, for the caterer, peace of mind, get your stuff ordered. Okay? SoulTechGathering.com. It's going down next week. Rita and I will be there. right now, tonight, 1 week from tonight, we will be at ECETI. And now, I've got some really cool, I got some stargazing binoculars. Of course, I have the night vision, and we're good to go. I cannot wait. I need one more tripod. I got to hit Amazon after the show. I need one more tripod. And either that or go dig in the garage. So there you go. You know what I'm going to do. But we're ready. It's going to be amazing. Soul Tech next week. And the week after that, August 17th through the 19th, I will be at Dimensions of Disclosure in Loveland, Colorado. And tickets and info are right there, dimensionsofdisclosure.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. We have over 895 archive shows. Just $2 per month. Apple, Android, all platforms, $2 a month. 895 archive shows for $2 a month. That's insane. It's insane. We got to raise those prices. It's too good. It's too good. $2 a month. You can also become a Fadernaut over in our membership section of the site, where you will not get the bunker cam, commercial-free downloadable archives. Of course, you can do that. And if you get the Game Changer, you get all of that really cool Fade to Black gear and autographed hats and all that stuff. And you get a private email to me. And so you can do all of that in our membership section of the site. Let's get this show cracking. Happy birthday to today. One of my favorites, actually, Zach Brown. Zach Brown Band. Zach Brown. He's good. Today he is 40. Also today, that's right, I'm going to say it, Mark Cuban is 60. And you know why Mark Cuban makes the list? You know why? Because dude sold broadcast.com to Yahoo for $5.9 billion in 1999. Anybody pulls that off, makes the birthday list. Sold a website for $5.9 billion. Then he buys the Mavericks. You got to love Mark Cuban. All right. Our dead guy's birthday today is, we don't have one. On this day in history, OTD, 1975. Jimmy Hoffa disappears, never to be heard from again. Fader fact, vetted. Dead people can get goosebumps. I wonder if Jimmy Hoffa did. You like how I tied that together? You like that? You like that? Tonight, Dr. Michael P. Masters is here. We're going to talk about his new book, Identified Flying Objects. Tomorrow night, it's Ouija night with Karen A. Dahlman. Thursday night, Fader night, John Rappaport, No More Fake Newsroom Live with special guest Matthew Ryan here all night and taking your calls. Now, these are strange days that we live in. I mean, there's no doubt about it, right? The country is divided. Listen to this. Just sit down and listen to your Uncle Jimmy for a second. The world is tripping. It's so out of control right now that we actually have, as a nation, as a world, we've got issues with the NFL, comedians, Hollywood, the news, Harley Davidson, E.T., UFOs, Washington, Canada, France, the UK, Germany, North Korea, Iran. ISIS is back. Oil prices, Russia, Tesla, guns, mass shootings every day, the weather, wildfires, tornadoes, hurricanes, CBS, NBC, ABC, Disney, CNN, Fox, right? Netflix got in on the action today with Louis Farrakhan. Amazon, Facebook, YouTube, on and on and on and on and on. Every aspect of our daily lives has been turned upside down. All of it. Go get your hair cut. You're going to have issues. Go put air in your tires. You're going to have issues. Everything is complicated. All of it. Every aspect of our lives. The drama that we must deal with from the minute we get up and somehow survive another nerve-wracking day is beyond measure. I seriously don't know how we do it, but somehow we move forward. But let's go back. Let's go back to 1998, 1999. I just talked about that. Mark Cuban sold Broadcast.com for $5.9 billion to Yahoo in 1999. Those are the good days. But back then, we had the millennium was coming up, right? Fast approaching year 2000. And there were many people out there, and I was reading it, and so were you, and watching it, talking about prophecy. Yes, we had the Mayan stuff, but there was Egyptian and Nostradamus and Edgar Cayce and biblical things and Inca and Hopi, and it was just everybody had a take on the year 2000. It was all there. It was crazy. And everyone was talking about the big things at the time that were suggesting these end of days, right? And if you go back and you look at, like I did, and I have, and you go back and look at the headlines in 98, go check it out, 99. Iraq was a really big deal. It was huge, which ultimately didn't ignite World War III. And if you think about it, the way that, yeah, I know, 500,000 troops, the Iraq War lasted 4 days, right? Swept across the country, whatever. And Saddam, ultimately who was caught hiding in a hole with a bunch of porn, right? It turned out to be not this crazy bloodthirsty, might have been while he was walking, but ultimately it wasn't the end of days, was it? Right? Scud missiles flying into Israel. It was going to be the end of everything. And it didn't happen. It didn't. AIDS. AIDS was huge. Just like Ebola and what we go through today. There's always, and I'm not saying AIDS isn't a big deal. I'm saying that back then it was part of the end of times. That's what I'm referring to. The stock market, right? The economy. This was all end of times stuff. The world politics that was going on back then. The way that it read back then, and you tie all of that into the year 2000, you not only had the Bible side of it, but the technology side and Y2K. Remember that? Remember the stress that we were under? It was crazy. The year 2000. Ooh. And everybody had an opinion about it. But back then, the world was on edge, and it was nervous. But as I look back at the different prophecies and the people spouting out about it all, well, not only was everyone wrong, but the issues were so simple. 1999 and what led up to it was just vanilla. It was easy peasy. Seriously, think about it. Today, we are dealing with some pretty serious and complex issues all day, every day, all around the world. It doesn't matter what part of your life that you want to take a look at. Everything has just spun out of control. And we have done it to ourselves. We asked for it. Well, sort of. It was also sold to us, too. But we bought it. The Fitbit, Bluetooth, mobile, streaming, connected, Wi-Fi, smart thingy that is us today, it's nuts. Our phones, cars, TVs, watches, billboards, cables, satellite, this connected existence, our banks, life, cards, payments, credit cards, Uber, entertainment, friends, news, information, info 24/7. It's crazy. Everybody else's problems are now yours. Think about it. They're yours to share, yours to experience, and get involved in. And you don't have a choice. All of it from all around the world. People you don't even know. I look around and watch literally everybody that I see checking their cell phones every couple of minutes. Everybody, no exceptions, all day long. For what? Do you actually think that the world changed in the last 2 minutes since the last time you checked? Seriously. Did you get that life-altering email or text that you didn't have 2 minutes ago? If there was ever an example of chaos and entropy, this is it. Our day-to-day, minute by minute, was life that it's organized. It's run by software. It's organized minute by minute every day by engineering so complex that nobody actually knows everything. Nobody. It runs by luck. Nobody knows everything. Nobody knows the banking industry. It's insanity. Nobody knows how it works. The stock market, nuts. The military, don't go there. Satellites, mobile tech, the net. Do you know how complex and insane DirecTV really is? Well, you don't. Trust me. It's insanity. And that's one little sliver, teeny tiny bit of this complex thing that we wanted. We chose this. It all happened so fast and it's gotten so crazy that when it falls apart, and it will, that'll be the end of times. You will wish, and I'm not joking, mark my words. This is not funny ha-ha stuff. You will wish it was 1999 with Y2K, Saddam, and Monica's blue dress. We can prevent it, though. We don't have to have panic. We don't have to have fear porn. We don't. We just have to start to slow down a little. Slow this down. We have to figure out how we got here and where we need to go. We built it too fast and we didn't understand the implications. And if it crashes, we crash hard. We have to study it. We have to talk about it. We have to consider what is really going on and what our future will be. Because if it falls apart, we are in the end of times. Only 18 years have passed. Only 18 years since the year 2000. Look where we are today. And now what we have is fighting, divisiveness, fracturing of not only society here, but around the world. And we don't understand why. And I'm telling you what it is. Seriously. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. It is going to be one of those shows tonight because we have Dr. Michael P. Masters here and his new book, Identified Flying Objects. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Simple. On the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet. I'll be right back with tonight's guest right after this. Stay with me.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe.
Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy.
What can I say about the most popular tea on the internet? And what do customers say about Life Change Tea at getthetea.com? A lot. But by federal law, we at getthetea.com cannot make claims to how this product can enhance your health. We cannot even post our testimonies without being in compliance. So how do we get past the hump? Try our products at getthetea.com and see for yourself. You can send us a testimony, but we just can't post it. Bummer. Our products are GMO-free and organic. We pride ourselves in being the best we can be, and we urge you to take charge of your health. We're 11 years strong, and many of our customers have shared their successes with friends and family. Protect your colon. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Getthetea.com. Getthetea.com.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show. On the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, The Planet.
Win big with KGRA this summer. Tickets and hotel accommodations to the biggest conferences, autographed books and DVDs, chances to win all-inclusive conference cruises, and private dinners with your favorite KGRA hosts. Click the contest tab at kgraradio.com for your chance to win big this summer. Your contact for the best alternative talk radio on the planet. kgraradio.com.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Combat, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. You can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. You can follow Dr. Michael P. Masters, and his Twitter handle is cool. I think it's Morpho Time, but you can find it right there. We've got it up in Twitter. Tomorrow night, I want to remind everybody, we're going to do Ouija board live on the air for the first time. So you're not going to want to miss that with Karen A. Dahlman. Thursday, open lines, Fader Night, John Rappaport, with our very special guest, Matthew Ryan, is going to be here to help me man the phones all night long. But tonight, I've been waiting for this show for a very long time. It's Dr. Michael P. Masters. He is a professor of biological anthropology at Montana Tech in Butte, Montana. He received a Ph.D. in anthropology from Ohio State University in 2009, where he specialized in hominin evolutionary anatomy, archaeology, and biomedicine. Over the years, Dr. Masters has developed a broad academic background, which began studying physics and astronomy at Ohio University in Athens, Ohio, with further undergraduate and graduate coursework in astrobiology, astronomy, and physics, along with a perennial review of developments in classical and quantum physics regarding our ever-evolving understanding of time and time travel. In his forthcoming book, Identified Flying Objects, Dr. Masters cautiously examines the premise that UFOs and aliens are, well, possibly us. But I have to ask, from where? Our guest tonight is Dr. Michael P. Masters. Dr. Michael.
Yes, yes, sir.
Welcome to the show. Now, before we move forward, do I go with doctor? Do I go with Professor? Do I go with Dr. Masters?
Just call me Mike.
Just call you Mike. Okay, that's simple. And we need to do our first-time guest disclaimer. The next time you're on the show, we're not going to do it, but we're going to do it now, which is it's just you and I sitting on my couch having a conversation as friends. And where the conversation starts, it starts. Where it ends, but we're going to end as friends. There you go. You ready?
Sounds good to me.
Now, with this show and the things that I talk about and the things that you not only write about, but you have been studying and researching are all the things that I cover in this show. But we all know, Mike, that this isn't what professors are supposed to be out there talking about and researching. Is it difficult or do you not care?
No, I cared for a long time. I still care. Naturally, yeah, there's been a division that's grown, a rift, if you will, between the academic scientific side of things and ufology and other ways of studying this phenomenon. And a big purpose of this book is to bring those together and to bridge that unnecessary divide. I don't feel like it needs to be there, and I feel like it should be more about collaboration and cooperation and one of competition and divisions, that many of which have been artificially imposed from a number of different sources. But I feel like this book, does a good job of sort of walking that fine line. And it was tough for a long time. I didn't really talk about it with my colleagues. I didn't talk about it with my peers. And then it got to the point, after I was a few years into writing, that I realized that it's a pretty legitimate approach to this question. And the science is solid, the research is solid. And ever since I've started talking about it, I've actually been really pleasantly surprised that people have not only expressed interest, but have been really supportive on the academic side with my scholarly peers. And it's been a really, really nice surprise, very encouraging, and just kind of kept me going and getting to the end of it. The book's actually been peer-reviewed by 3 different Ph.D s, one of whom taught quantum mechanics and theoretical physics for over 20 years, another biological anthropologist, Ph.D., another Ph.D. in microbiology and immunology, and they all had really positive comments. Number of things that I did end up changing because of what they suggested, some things that may have been a little too speculative that I kind of pulled back and toned down a little bit, but overall, they were quite encouraging comments, and it's kind of made me even more excited to get this out there.
Will they put their name on the book?
I think they would. I haven't asked them that question, but I imagine that they would.
Well, the UFO community needs it. And the more, when you look at, I always think of, Dr. Robert Schoch, who has turned into, a really good friend, not only with me personally, but this show and our community. And he rolled the dice and took a huge gamble with what he did. He waited until he was tenured, and then the Sphinx stuff came out. But he is one of the leading voices, and for our community, we need that kind of support from those from academia that understand what academia is and the fight that we are and the alternative views that are largely ignored. And that's why we need you. Now, is your next book about Atlantis?
No.
You're not going to go there.
I'm a long way from thinking about the next one. This book is taken away my summer in many ways, and the summer before, and the summer before, and the summer before. So maybe someday.
Now, okay. We're going to talk UFOs for the majority of the evening tonight. But if you were actually sitting on my couch, and with your background, I'm not so sure I would talk about UFOs. You know what I would talk about? I would talk about the missing link.
Right.
Or us, or how we got here, because that's another piece of this puzzle that is actually connected in a very strange way because of the way that you approach this book.
Yeah, it's a very important part of it, absolutely.
It is. It really is. And when I look at, okay, yes or no, did Darwin just completely have it wrong?
Oh, no, not at all. He actually did a really good job of pulling a bunch of pieces together. In fact, it was his grandfather, Erasmus Darwin, who sort of laid the foundation for what he did. But in his travels around the HMS Beagle, around the world, he noticed adaptation in various organisms that was clearly an adaptation to their environment. And looking at the finches on the Galapagos and pulling together all of this massive research, he was able to show how nature selects winners and selects against losers, and then those genes are passed on, and you get more of those individuals in the next generation. And
okay, that part he got right.
That part he got right.
That part he got right. But us, you and I, Homo sapiens, us, the ones that are sitting here now, where are the millions of years of evolution that got us here? We just appeared. And that I just can't wrap my head around that. 200,000 years ago, here we are, beautiful, perfect forehead and jaw and nose and no hair. Right? I mean, it's like we just appeared. And,
well, I mean, the fossil record certainly makes it look like appearances happen, because anytime you're digging back through time, there's going to be sampling error. You can't find every year represented as partly because of geology, erosion, things that happen that make them disappear. But if you go back to about 6 to 8 million years ago, when we first became hominins, when we first became bipedal, upright, human-like beings with Ardipithecus ramidus, the Australopithecines, there were 6 different versions of them. And then you can kind of piece together these incremental changes that took place over time, where the biggest ones, of course, being our brains getting bigger, our faces getting smaller, us becoming more upright, obviously becoming more intelligent, developing culture, things like that. But even going back 200,000 years ago, preceding us were a number of, Homo heidelbergensis being a good example, Homo rudolfensis. They were just before modern humans, and in fact led to the split between modern humans and Neanderthal and the Denisovans that lived in Europe and Central Asia. So there were still continuations. There were other species. There were the little hobbits that evolved on the island of Flores in Southeast Asia. So there was continuity there. It definitely appears as though we just appeared. And if you look at the genetics, it sort of indicates that more too. But as far as the fossil morphology, it was definitely a continual progression into modern humans from those what we call archaic Homo forms.
But the problem, and I agree with everything that you just said, including we just appeared. It appears that way, and genetics also state that too. I don't see I don't see all of the millions of years that it would have taken for our forehead to form. You know, I don't see the connection between Cro-Magnon and Neanderthal or Australopithecus, for instance. I look at all of that, and I don't see any connection to us.
Another big problem is that in having to classify us as anatomically modern Homo sapiens, we have to pick traits that make us distinct. So when we say that the formation of a forehead or the formation of a mental eminence, which is the chin, when those things occur, we're stating that and we're imposing it on this group when really they were developing slowly. I mean, you can see I'm looking at a whole series of skulls sitting on my shelf in my office right now, and you can see that forehead growing across them. You can see the teeth starting to recede, which is where we got the chin from. It didn't have anything to do with our lower jaw. It was just our teeth receding past where the mandible comes together there. And those things you can see as incremental changes across those various species.
And for you, how would you explain, I need to hear this, how do you explain us just magically appearing 200,000 years ago?
It's something that I've almost come to fisticuffs over keg parties in graduate school. We anthropologists tend to fight with each other about some pretty weird and esoteric things, but that's one of them. It comes down to this debate called the out of Africa versus the multi-regional hypothesis. And what you're talking about is the out of Africa, that 200,000 years ago, our species formed only in Africa, spread out, killed off the Neanderthals, killed off the Denisovans, went eastward, killed off all of the archaic forms over there. And and actually many of my colleagues, the ones that I didn't murder at keg parties, I guess, actually adhere to the multi-regional hypothesis that we've evolved slowly in each of these different areas, except for the Neanderthals, we did kill them off. But in each of these other areas, we evolved slowly from the archaic Homo forms into modern Homo sapiens sapiens. And gene flow, the interbreeding amongst all of these groups spread throughout the old world, is what kept that genetic homogeneity. So under that model, it wasn't all of a sudden at all. Under the out of Africa model, which is mostly backed up by the genetic data, it does appear that we just formed in that one continent and then spread out to the other parts. And almost everyone would agree, regardless of which side you're on, that we did spread out into Europe and kill off the Neanderthals there.
No, then how do we explain, and I know this starts to get a little fringy, but how do we explain the miracle of the chromosome count?
What do you mean, that we have one fewer than a chimpanzee? Or?
That's right. I mean, that's crazy. And I don't know how much genetic information is involved with a couple of chromosomes, but it's a tremendous amount of information.
It is, and certain chromosomes.
Right,
definitely.
that we technically are lacking.
Yeah, well, I don't remember exactly which one. I think it was the second or third.
Second and third, right.
Is that right? It's been a while since I've looked at that. But they fused at some point. And yeah, you're right. If there's a chromosomal change in pretty much trisomy 21, Down syndrome is an extra chromosome at the 21st locus. But with those two, it didn't seem to have a negative impact, and eventually became so common in that population where that mutation initially occurred that it just became fixed in human populations. So yeah, you're right. If that would have happened on any other ones, that individual would have died.
Yeah.
But that individual not only didn't die, they just, by probably the luck of the draw, happened to make a ton of babies after that. And their descendants rather, made more babies. And it just became a characteristic of humans that differentiates us from the common chimpanzee.
How do you think that would occur in nature? The fusing of chromosomes. I mean, it almost seems like it was deliberate.
Well, I don't know. I mean, there's so much reproduction that happens with every animal over, we're talking millions of years. And if enough things are making babies, and there's enough, at least in eukaryotes, there's enough sperm and egg coming together and replicating and crossing over, and then through the process of meiosis, making a new individual, there's a lot that can go wrong in that process. And it very well could be something that happened naturally, and just by the luck of the draw, it kept going. I don't think it has anything to do with what makes us human. We don't really talk about it as something that was important to human evolution. It's more just in the context of something that differentiates us from chimps, because, other than that, we share 98% of the same DNA. It's just that one chromosomal difference. But if you look at, like a blue whale, they have 146 chromosomes or something like that. So if we go back to the common ancestor with a blue whale some 60 million years ago, we had the same number then too, and just over time we lost some, they gained some. Across all of the different organisms on Earth, it's definitely possible that these things happen, and that one just kind of happened, I guess.
Yeah, and so for me, this is where your book gets interesting, and we're going to jump into that, and we'll pick it up after the break. But could it be that we are us from the future, that somebody from the future altered those chromosomes and and just planted us here 200,000 years ago?
Planted, I would say no, because there is that whole continual, gradual change that takes place that we can clearly see in the fossil record. But the last chapter of the book does get into some of the things that come with time travel. If we are coming back from the future to study us in the past, which is exactly what I would do as an anthropologist. Specifically, I'm a paleoanthropologist who has worked at fossil sites in South Africa and France and other places. If I had a time machine, you better believe I would be hopping in that thing and going back to look at these guys. Because when you're archaeology's backbreaking work, you're digging through layers of dirt in South Africa. We're blasting through this brecciated rock in order to pull out these bones and piece together our fossil history. If we could just go back and look at them and study them, I would guarantee you every anthropologist alive right now would say, well, hell yeah, I would do that. Once we get into that issue, if these are what I like to call extraterrestrials rather than extraterrestrials, which, I think it's Latin or Greek, terra meaning earth, temp meaning time. If they are indeed extraterrestrials, once we have access to our human ancestors, what would we do? What wouldn't we do? I mean, there's ethical questions involved. There's issues of manipulating ourselves in the past. There's issues of perceived time paradoxes, which would be great to talk about after the break too.
Right.
It makes you ask a lot of new questions about what sort of things we would do. I mean, cattle mutations, were they just hungry and they didn't have cows in the future? I mean, who knows? There's a lot of extra questions that are raised by that. And whether or not we are actively messing with our genome in the past or now or whatever, it is an interesting question. You look at abduction reports, and many of them involve gamete extraction from men with those little machines that cause instant ejaculation, and babies being implanted in women and then taken out later. There's a lot of stories like that. And that in itself raises questions about what, if any, not necessarily manipulation of past human genomes, but study of it, or possibly using it in the future. And that's something that one of my peer reviewers mentioned in talking about that, is there have been a lot of bottlenecks throughout the human past. And if it comes to a point where our genetic variability is limited, it makes us extremely vulnerable to a lot of different diseases and other sorts of natural disasters and natural phenomenon that could potentially wipe out the human race. So if we were faced with a bottleneck at some point, I mean, you were talking a lot about Y2K and the destruction that could happen to humanity, and it is a real concern. It's a real fear. If we all start launching nukes at each other, inevitably some of us will survive. And in fact, if this theory about our time-traveling descendants is accurate, it's a pretty good indication that we will. But once we get to that point, if there is a genetic bottleneck and we need extra variation and we have the technology to travel to the past, why not? Why not take some genetic material from past human populations that would add new genetic variants to an isolated, almost temporal island population in the future,
right,
and help bolster that genetic variability once again. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's the more speculative chapter in the book for sure. But as much as I have really focused on just what we can know, what we can know now, the last two chapters of the book get into more of those questions regarding what if, what would be, still rooted in our understanding of long-term evolutionary change and hominins and other animals, but also still trying to get it an explanation for many of the things that are commonly reported in close encounters and especially abduction reports. Like, why would we be doing these things? What if we had that technology in the future? What might be the reason behind it. And I'll admit that much of that is speculative.
It's not. If you really look at it, it's not, because you go on digs around the world, and you have friends and coworkers that are out there looking for new species and whatnot. And if you're down in the jungles in Brazil and you find you're going to bag it, you're going to take it, you're going to bring it back, you're going to research, you're going to look at it, maybe even kill it, and study it and open it up. Well, that's exactly what is going on right now. I don't think you're reaching at all. I think it's just what we do.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And if you don't ask, you can't know. I mean, maybe I'll write something in there that a physicist or a geneticist will be able to add to in the future. And that's the whole essence of science, is building this collective knowledge over time that we're adding to. And some of us are wrong. Most of us are wrong. But in that process of being wrong, we get at right answers. And when I'm teaching about the history of evolution, we talk about this guy named Jean-Baptiste de Lamarck. He was so right about so many things that have to do with biological evolution, but he was very wrong about the most important ones. But his being wrong was still enough for Darwin and Alfred Russel Wallace to put together the pieces to get it right the next time. So I think it's important to still ask and still talk about it. And I preface, that part of the book in that context. I actually enjoyed very much bashing immunologists and their inability to make effective flu vaccines, because their job is to predict what strain of the flu is going to be the most prolific that year, and it kind of seems like they get it wrong most of the time. But they're still allowed to speculate. The weatherman's allowed to speculate, but we don't bash them for it. So I don't put them out as a human shield. I don't try to hide behind that, but I do acknowledge that astrobiology is a very well-respected field, but a lot of it's still very much rooted in speculation. So
all of it is in speculation.
Yeah, a great deal of it, and
yes,
that's part of science. It's pushing it forward, it's asking questions,
that's
it's engaging other people and their knowledge to really get at something deeper.
Well, why is it, we've got 1 minute before the break. You can give me the quick answer. We'll pick up after the break. Why is it that professional academia is too afraid to step outside of the box? Like you are definitely stepping outside of the box, but they don't want to do that. It seems like asking questions and wondering and being fascinated about something is the opposite of what they actually do.
You want me to answer that in 1 minute?
Well, no. but you understand exactly where I'm going with this.
I understand all too well exactly what you're talking about. And like you mentioned that, what did you say, Robert Schoch was his name?
Yeah, Robert Schoch.
He waited till he had tenure. I waited till I had tenure. In a perfect world, we wouldn't have to do that. But for my job alone, there were 77 applicants. Most of the people were interviewing for other jobs. There's over 150 right now. People are scared to lose their job. They're scared to be blackballed from the scientific community. I obviously still feel that, but I also am confident in the research that I'm doing, and I know I'm writing this book as much for my academic colleagues as anyone else. I really feel confident that they'll read it and say, all right, Masters hasn't gone crazy. He's making some good points here. I may or may not agree with all of them, but I respect the effort. And I hope that more people will do that. I would really hope that we could bridge this unnecessary divide and really bring more people to the conversation.
Let's take a break right here. Amazing start to the show, and we've got a lot to discuss. I'll try to get everything in tonight. Dr. Michael P. Masters. Now, his new book is called Identified Flying Objects. Now, we're talking about quantum physics. We're talking about time travel. E.T., is it actually us visiting? We'll get to all of that right after the break. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. More with Dr. Michael P. Masters after this short break. Stay with us.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station. Salt Lake City, Utah. Van Buren, Arkansas.
Does your basement or crawl space have a damp, musty smell? Well, watch out! That's a sign of too much moisture and not enough ventilation. And that can mean increased mold growth and the buildup of harmful toxins and gases. Don't bother with a dehumidifier. It just circulates the same unhealthy air. Now there's a better way to remove these dangers and odors. It's with the computerized Wave Moisture Control Unit that reduces moisture and expels pollutants.
We replaced our old dehumidifier with the Wave unit, and in only 3 weeks, our basement is dry and the musty smell is gone.
Wave units require no maintenance, no buckets of water or filters, and costs only pennies a day to run. Breathe better, live healthier with an affordable, no-maintenance Wave unit. Call 888-717-WAVE, 888-717-WAVE, or visit dryhealthyhome.com. Dryhealthyhome.com.
Ride the wave. Wave Home Solutions for a healthy, comfortable home.
Hello, I'm Katie, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA Digital Broadcast Station.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to jimmychurchradio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And this is Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. Yes. We are of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And I'm Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
And you're listening to Jimmy Church.
The Revolution.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Dr. Michael P. Masters. He's got a new book coming out, Identified Flying Objects. He received his Ph.D. in Anthropology from Ohio State University in 2009, where he specialized in hominin, evolutionary anatomy, archaeology, and biomedicine. Now, Dr. Michael, check this out. My brother graduated from Ohio State in 2009.
No kidding.
Yeah, did you know him? It's a joke. 150,000 students, right?
Yeah, there are, but you'd be surprised. You'd be so surprised how many of them you just come across.
Yeah, but he did graduate in 2009, so there you go. My parents just moved from Columbus, actually, too, as well, back to Indianapolis, but I'm from that part of the world. Now, okay, before we get really serious into this discussion, this is where... the academics out there and the Egyptologists and the other historians and anthropologists, where I don't buy what they're selling. And it's this basic fact, which is if we go back to 3000 BC, 2900 BC, at the end of the Stone Age, right, where the rest of the world, the entire planet, is running around in animal skins. And Egypt and Mesopotamia, seemingly overnight, were upright and functional systems with the first of everything, right? Math, libraries, laws, music, farming, science, engineering, astronomy, roads. They had everything when nobody else didn't. And I don't know where that knowledge came from. And the academics will just say, well, you're not giving them enough credit. It just happened. I have a hard time with that, and I feel like I'm being lied to. Is it that they don't know how it happened? Or was there something else? Were they just taught from somebody?
The difficult thing with archaeology is that we are able to uncover the past. We are able to dig things up and identify what a culture had at a specific time. We can compare that to other cultures around the world at that same time. Or we also look at how technology and culture changes through time, both in those regions and compared to other regions. And absolutely, the Neolithic is one of the most interesting, the original, well, the second Renaissance, I guess. A lot of people consider the Upper Paleolithic in Europe with the advent of new stone tool technology and art, jewelry, things like that. But the Neolithic was a revolutionary time. I was lucky to get to work with a lot of Egyptian skulls at the museum in Turin, Italy, when I was doing my dissertation research, and they did such a good job at preserving these mummies that there was still hair and skin on them. I mean, I was trying to take measurements from the skull, and I had to work around pieces of skin and hair that were still there after 7,000 years. Because they were so good at what they were doing. But to get back to your question, the thing that's difficult is that we look at all of the material cultural remains. We look at what they had. The interpretation of those is more difficult. We fight amongst ourselves about what it all means. When we try to figure out the origins of agriculture, massive infighting. People would have these ideas that seemed totally legitimate. Everyone would tear them down. In most cases, those people ended up being right as we got more data and more evidence. So we can only present what we find. We have a strong background in being able to interpret it based on other published results from earlier publications and also comparing those to publications from other sites. But there's a lot that we can't know. And when it comes down to interpretation, there's room for a lot of different interpretations of what is found in an archaeological site, and especially when there's those big jumps forward. Partly, it's the archaeological record. Again, it's sampling error, that there just wasn't a lot before that, and it looks like a bigger jump than maybe it is. But at the same time, there are other interpretations that could be provided to help explain some of those things. And the Neolithic, the Upper Paleolithic, definitely major changes in the Teotihuacan Valley of Mexico, the Aztec, the Inca, the Maya. They developed culture very quickly around the same time, most of it in accordance with agriculture. You could argue that agriculture was a big part of it because it freed people up from having to work in the fields. It allowed for a class of people that could spend their time thinking. It allowed for artisans. It allowed for metal workers, since that was the beginning of the Copper Age, the end of the Stone Age. So, yeah, I mean, it could be a lot of different variables that came together at that time. Absolutely.
But I still didn't get an explanation on how it happened.
That was a very big dodge of your question. Yes.
It was I
will admit that.
Because for us out here on the fringes of knowledge, where we're trying to get these answers, I can't explain that at 3000 BC. There's a simple answer for me. It's just that they were taught. Everybody's taught. So who taught them? I don't know where it came from. And then there's this other situation that popped up, and it's called Göbekli Tepe, where we were told, and are still told today, that the foundations of everything were right there in Egypt, and it's Sumer and Mesopotamia is kind of ignored, but it's surfacing now, I think, at the college level. And that was the start of everything, and everybody wants to talk about Rome and Greece. But now we have Göbekli Tepe, 7,000 years before the pyramids were allegedly built. We have Göbekli Tepe, which is just as beautiful and wonderful and complex as anything that was done 7,000 years later. Göbekli Tepe wasn't supposed to exist. And it makes me wonder how many more Göbekli Tepes are out there.
Yeah, my main academic focus is in things much, much older. I mean, my research is with early hominins, going back 5-6 million years ago. I do teach archaeology. Fortunately, I haven't had to for a while because just between you and me, it's kind of boring to teach. But but there are definitely time periods where things happen in certain places, and then when those things spread, it definitely raises questions about what happened there and why did it spread so fast, and absolutely, I mean, it's open for interpretation about some sort of teaching that may have happened. I try not to go too deep into the artifacts and features of the past. I do talk about it in the book. I feel like if you're going to talk about humans traveling to different parts of the past, there are things that sort of indicate some sort of interaction, some sort of maybe even teaching. And while I think it's kind of been blown out of proportion a little bit, and that people sort of jumped on it and taken it a bit too far, I do understand that certain aspects of human prehistory sort of indicate some sort of outside influence. And the book, it's chapter 3, it's called A Brief History of Time Travelers, play on Stephen Hawking's book, A Brief History of Time. It talks about the prehistory, it talks about the history, it talks about a lot of folklore where you have instances of very alien craft and alien beings that have made their way into myth and folklore. And then obviously, ends with modern day accounts. And I take a lot of data from a number of different UFO reporting sites and plot the frequency of these reports. And it's, if it's happening now and we had the ability to go to those time periods too, by doing so, simply by being there, we're going to enumerate ourselves in that time period in some way, no matter how hard we
try to avoid. Right.
Yeah, try to avoid it. We try to pick people up. I mean, even now, according to all of these reports, they're not, diving down in Times Square and just picking people up. It's always in some backwoods cabin somewhere, taking fecal samples, taking sperm samples, skin samples, and dropping them off with really a very fuzzy memory of what might have happened. So I think, and it makes sense why they would do that as time travelers. If they had flown millions of light years to get here, it doesn't really make sense. Why wouldn't you get out and meet the president of some nation? Why wouldn't you make your presence known? Say, hey, we're here. They would murder us and take our resources, or they would be our best friends and we'd sit down and have tea together. But going back in time, and as anthropologists trying to study the past, we would try as hard as possible to limit our influence on that past. But just being there, it's bound to happen. There's bound to be something that changed that culture in some way, I think.
Yeah, I have often said, I want to stay on this. I want to stay right here. I've often said if I was a time traveler going into the future or into the past, the last thing on my list is getting discovered.
Right. Absolutely.
You're going to die, right?
Yeah.
So something bad's going to happen.
Yeah.
And you're going to want to stay as invisible as possible, and you're not going to want to get caught.
No, it's dangerous. I mean, it's dangerous for us now. I had a bunch of friends after we were digging in France at this Neanderthal site. They went over to one of the earliest Homo sapiens site in northern Africa, and they were there for a week, and all of a sudden this warring tribe came into the area. They got out the next day. They murdered 15, 20 people. Anthropology is innately dangerous now, even. We go into war zones. We try to help rebuild schools. We try to help rebuild societies, and there's a lot of anthropologists that die in doing so. You talk about going back, to pick up Homo erectus 1 million years ago, and they just, got brand new spears, and they're big, brutish creatures. You go at them with an anal probe, they're probably going to stab you with their spear. I know I would.
Yes.
So yeah, absolutely. There's going to be inherent dangers, and I assume there would be some protocol. I mean, if they gave me a time machine right now and said go back, to 750,000 years ago, I would take a lot of weapons that I have now. From the abduction reports that you hear, they seem to have some ability just to paralyze us, just to freeze us, which would be a great tool to have at your disposal. But yeah, I would definitely be worried about my own safety. I would be worried about modifying the culture of that time, modifying the belief system of the people. It's something we do now as anthropologists when we work across different cultural groups. I mean, we used to just blast into the Amazon and give people cigarettes and bubble gum and candy to talk to us, and realize that it was rotting out their teeth and giving them lung cancer eventually. But that quest for answers has come at a cost to other people. And like I said, it's come at a cost to our health and well-being as well. So, yeah, I think as much as we could or can, if that is the case for the future, we would want to limit our exposure. We would want to limit their perception of us. And based on modern day accounts, it seems to be exactly what they do.
The general accepted number is Earth is about 4.5 billion years old. Okay? Mm-hmm. So based on that, 4.5 billion years is a long time. Okay, it's a big chunk of time. You look at us and you look at, let's say, Lucy. Okay, we're talking about 4 million years. A blip of time out of 4.5 billion years. Yeah. And then if you look at us today and the last 2,000 years where we have come, or the last 100 years or the last 50 years, that sliver gets smaller and smaller and smaller. Do you think it's possible that there could have been a rise and fall of us a few times in the last 500 million years?
I mean, even going back 65 million years ago, we looked like a little tree shrew or a mouse.
So what I'm saying is evolution could have happened many times. It's certainly 65 million years ago. We all know what happened. And 90% of everything on this planet was killed. Mm-hmm. And it all came back, well, except for the dinosaurs. And so in 65 million years, that short little sliver of time, all of this evolution allegedly happened. However it happened, I don't know. I don't know if we were, I often wonder if our species, thousands of them on this planet, tens of thousands were just maybe dropped off by a meteor or something, and the planet was repopulated because so much happened in 65 million years. It's crazy.
A lot of it was just the dinosaurs dying. I mean, the mammals were able to live underground because they were warm-blooded. Dinosaurs needed the sun. Once they got blasted into history by the asteroid around the Yucatan Peninsula, it allowed all of our tree shrew, mouse-like ancestors to come out, and what happened was what's known as an adaptive radiation, where there are all of these new ecological niches available, and we could just go into them and populate them and start evolving as mammals once we're subjugated to the ground before. And interestingly, our own lineage, the primates, happen to go up in the trees. That has a lot to do with why we can still use the monkey bars and why we have pads on the tips of our fingers and fingernails instead of claws, and why our vision's so good. We cross over our visual field to see. So we're jumping from tree to tree. That'd be pretty important, and can understand how natural selection would favor those organisms with those traits. And we eventually came down from the trees about 6 to 8 million years ago. And that's really when humanity became a separate lineage, a separate cog in the machine, so to speak, where we stood upright. And in fact, a big part of the book talks about how that process of just standing upright and becoming bipedal set in motion so many things that led to our success culturally and just as an organism populating every part of the earth, is that forced us to rotate our heads downward in order to see where we're going. Is going from a quadrupedal animal to a bipedal one. You naturally have to do that, but that process in itself flexed what's known as the basicranium, where our brain sits, and that allowed our brain to grow bigger. If you think of a slinky, you take the two sides, you bend them toward each other. That's kind of what the base of our cranium did, and it opens up all of this space at the top where a bigger brain could grow. So in the same way that we benefited from culture and large brains, a lot of our big brains is really just a product of standing upright. And we're one of few animals that do it here on Earth. I make a case in the book for how bipedalism would be even more rare on other planets. And one of the biggest common traits of these aliens, these extraterrestrials, as I call them, is that they stand upright. They have the same cranial morphology that we have. They have large bulbous foreheads. They have tiny noses and mouths, and those are the same traits that we've seen in human evolution, especially over the last 3 to 4 million years. And if you project that forward into the future, you would expect to see that exact morphological form in our distant descendants. So the fact that they have those traits, we have those traits, our ancestors have more primitive form of those traits, indicate some morphological continuity here on planet Earth. You factor in that most planets that have been discovered outside of our solar system that are habitable, exoplanets as they call them, are much, much larger than Earth. It would be very difficult for a bipedal organism to develop on those planets simply because they would crush their tiny little 2 legs under the weight of gravity on that planet. So having this form that we have now, looking at the form of our ancestors, and then also the form, if we can understand these aliens as being from time rather than space, sort of indicates that there is this long connected history of our lineage, the hominin lineage, here on this planet. And, honestly, if you factor in the culture, the technology that we have, the technology that they have, you could definitely understand how it's built upon that which exists today in a number of different ways.
Now, you're now tenured. You just got promoted, right? Congratulations on that,
Thank
by the
you.
way.
Yeah, just last month.
Yeah, last month. So I think you can answer this question. You can be honest. Have you seen a UFO?
No, I haven't actually, which kind of bums me out, to tell you the truth.
I can arrange it if
that would be awesome.
I can arrange it.
I go out into the woods. I mean, I live in a very, very unpopulated part of the world.
Mm-hmm.
I spend a lot of time in the middle of nowhere. I love elk hunting, which takes you up into some very isolated parts of Montana. And I always just look to the skies, and I would love to meet what I consider to be my distant descendants. But no, unfortunately, I haven't. Interestingly, the book idea came when I was 8 years old. My father had seen one, and I heard him telling the story. I remember it very vividly. I was sitting on the stairs listening to him to describe it to somebody, and there's this sense of confusion and wonder and awe in his voice. He works late at night in Amish country as a veterinarian, and it's very dark in that part of the world because they don't use electricity, but there's this bright glowing orb that appeared in the distance, and they sort of stopped to look at it, and according to his account, it shot toward him, hovered there right in front of him for a little bit, shot up into the sky, back down to where it was, and then headed back up. And he, probably looking for answers, bought a book by Whitley Strieber called Communion. And I remember it sitting on the bookshelf at our house in the living room. And I walked by it, and I looked up at it, and there's this picture of kind of the quintessential alien with the big bald head and the little tiny face and nose and big black eyes. And I had this mental image, which is actually in chapter 1 of the book, and I put it on my website and even a T-shirt and some fridge magnets, of sort of an early human hominin, as we call them, sort of a chimp-like creature a modern human in the middle and then this alien creature on the right side. And it sort of solidified this idea of that continuity. I mean, I was 8. I had no idea about human evolution. I lived in the Bible Belt. I had no way of learning about it. But from that point on, it was this idea that just kept coming back to me. I ended up studying physics and astronomy, and then physical, biological anthropology. And obviously there's, the potential for confirmation bias in doing that, where if I look for those things, I will find them. But it wasn't the case at all. The further I got into grad school, the more I studied hominin evolutionary anatomy and our physical changes over time in our skulls and postcranial anatomy. It became just a more solidified idea. It became a more intuitive explanation for this phenomenon. So I decided to write a book about it.
You were 8. You should have read the book.
Well, what's funny is that I eventually did a few years ago. And at the very end of it, he actually talks about how I forget what exactly he says, but he says that if I had been asked, I feel like I had just been studied by a team of biologists and anthropologists. And I read that and I was like, well, hell, I guess Whitley Strieber, and I kind of maybe think the same thing. But I mean, most of the book draws from the extraterrestrial model. But that passage made me think. And then obviously, I've heard other people say that, the time travel explanation, it may be a possibility. This book goes into way more detail and draws from a lot of different fields to really make that case in a very scientifically fastidious way. So it's been really actually interesting and fun to see this idea expressed in other ways.
We need to take a break right here, but when we come back, we are going to discuss the science of all of this, and especially when it comes to quantum physics, Mike. We discuss this nearly every single night on this show. So let's do it when we come back. Let's get into the science of time travel.
Yeah, sounds great.
Unbelievable conversation. This audience is going, yeah, Jimmy's in his zone. I am. This is Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, Dr. Michael P. Masters. This is Fade to Black. Stay with us.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Hurricanes, earthquakes, wildfires. This year we've experienced more than our fair share. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. And last month I decided to make sure my family does not have to worry about food should we get caught in a real emergency situation. Introducing Numana, a healthy, storable product that tastes so good that you'll want to eat it every day instead of just during those times of duress. All Numana products have a 25-year shelf life, are MSG and GMO-free, no preservatives, and are made in America. With the Numana pack in your home, you'll be able to sleep at night knowing that you've protected your family. Not only have I tasted and tested, I own it. Now you can too. Just click on the Numana banner on JimmyChurchRadio.com and use the promo code Jimmy when you order. In addition to a discount, we'll send you an autographed Fade to Black t-shirt. Seriously. Go Beckley Tappy.
Do you worry a lot? Whether you're a college student, busy professional, parent, or grandparent, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in 1 to 2 weeks. Call 1-800-758-8746 or calmandclever.com.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRAradio.com.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Dr. Michael P. Masters, talking about his new book, and it is called Identified Flying Objects. And the book deals with, well, a lot of, the anthropology and the science of evolution, certainly, but that it's possibly time travel, and our ET friends and those UFOs just might be us. Fascinating. Now, Mike, about, back in 1981, we had the Rendlesham Forest incident, and Jim Penniston, one of the witnesses for that, said on this show that he touched the craft, and when he did, he got a vision, a download, and which said the message was basically, we are you from the future.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, and everybody else, they're looking at the craft, they're seeing the lights in the sky and beams of light, and everybody, and still to this day, is considering this ET, and for the obvious reasons. But Penniston said that it was us from the future, which caused a lot of us to step back and go, well, that's interesting.
Yeah, I'm surprised I haven't come across that yet. I appreciate the info.
Well, I can get you two in touch with each other, but we'll do that later. We'll do that later. I almost called Whitley during the break. I just had him on Coast to Coast over the weekend.
Oh, no kidding. That's awesome.
Yeah, and he lives right down the street too as well. But anyway, I think we are getting closer that science and the fringe are now starting to meet in the middle here, where we do have quantum, not only the entire quantum element when it comes to string theory or quantum mechanics and all of that, but then we have qubits and quantum computers, and we have Silicon Valley talking about parallel worlds and a binary existence, and quantum computing operates in parallel worlds no matter how you want it.
Yeah, it's an exciting time.
It is. It really is. So if all of this is starting to mesh together, we are going to find out that the world is truly not what it seems, that there's a lot of fascinating things going on.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. We're definitely in the early stages of it. It's hard to really say what the exact mechanisms are that create the ability to bend light cones backwards and project your world line backwards into the past. But I mean, there's been a lot that's demonstrated that regardless of the actual mechanism, it is possible. I mean, the big question has always been, is it even possible to time travel? And unfortunately, some very big names have been very staunchly opposed to that idea. And if you look at it from the standpoint of classical physics, there's a lot of problems. There's paradoxes that arise. But then in the realm of quantum mechanics, you're able to bypass a lot of those, to sidestep them. And the main thing that's demonstrated over and over is that there's a self-consistency among events, that you don't have the future influencing the past, but rather the future was always part of that past, and the past was always part of the future. You can't change anything. There's no change that can occur. Rather, they're just two aspects of time that are linked together in a more holistic loop, so to speak. And that's really interesting.
Yeah, expand on that a little bit, because if we, Einstein specifically pointed out time loops. And this was not something that was made up. This isn't urban legend. This is something that he realized was very, very possible. So, but when we deal with something like that, that's when we get into this world of paradoxes. And if the future is the past and the past is influencing the future and they're one and the same, then paradoxes don't matter, or they are impossible to occur.
Both, yeah. The generally accepted, the way most physicists would approach that is that their time is essentially a giant block, a giant landscape. It's oftentimes referred to as block time, where all events that will ever happen or have ever happened already are. They already have, they are now, they already will in the future. And when you understand time in that way, things from the future and from the past are able to be linked together in a way where none of them really influenced each other, but they've always existed in that sort of static realm of block time. And the main, Stephen Hawking was a very big proponent of what he called chronology protection, where time travel for macroscopic objects isn't possible because of these paradoxes. He thought that these paradoxes would prohibit any sort of travel to the past for something bigger than a tachyon, for instance.
Right.
You have then Friedman, Novikov, even Kip Thorne, one of his best friends, who show that in quantum physics, that's not necessarily an issue. The grandfather paradox, the classic paradox of what if you go back in time and kill your grandfather? If your grandfather's alive and you're alive, you never did. It's not possible. So that part of your question is if it didn't happen, it's not going to happen. There's no way to change the past. There's no way to make something different than how it already is in this giant block of time.
Well, okay, this is one of the theories that I tend to agree with. We'll never know until we do it. But going back to the grandfather paradox, you go back, you got the loaded gun, you're going to go kill your grandfather before he crosses the street to go into the theater for the first time on his first date with your grandmother, right?
Sure.
Okay. And you point the gun at your grandfather and it jams, right? There's something, he will always cross the street. He will.
Yeah.
There is nothing there will be something that will prevent it. A car will come by and run you over, whatever it is. But
yeah, and it's tricky because this has only been demonstrated in very complex mathematical models, mostly using billiard balls going in this hole and then out of this hole, and it always knocks it out of the way. Once you take that model and project it up to real people doing real things with real guns and real cars hitting them, I don't think anybody knows, to tell you the truth. I don't know what aspect of the universe can prohibit that event from happening, but for it to be self-consistent, it didn't. If you're there, you didn't kill your grandfather before he made your mother, father with your grandparents, and they made you. It's one of those areas that we just don't fully understand. In fact, that's what was great about the peer reviewer with such a strong background in physics and quantum mechanics, is that he suggested that I acknowledge that very early in the chapter, that what we're talking about here is on a macro scale where there's just things that we can't know yet. I mean, there's a whole chapter just about time. Like, what is time? We still don't know that. Einstein didn't know what time is. Nobody knows what it actually is. But there's a lot of ways to understand the impact that it has, especially on biological organisms, and many would advocate that the only reason time seems to move forward is because we have consciousness and brains that can impose the sequence of events moving forward, whereas in this big block of time, it really doesn't. It's symmetrical, can move both ways. So once you get to the basics of what time is, then the question is, how do we turn it backwards? And one consistent theme that keeps coming up, I mean, you go back to Van Stockham space-time, the Gödel metric, Tipler cylinders, they all involve the rotation of a large mass. They all involve some sort of spinning cylinder or spinning disk. And a lot of more recent papers in this area of study also still involve some sort of rotation. And the biggest consistent thing of UFOs is that they're rotating. That would be something that would be necessary to keep it from falling over. I mean, you can't throw a Frisbee without spinning it, for instance. But even beyond that, beyond stabilizing it and the propulsion aspects of it, it's very possible that spinning characteristic of UFOs is the mechanism by which they bend light cones over and allow the individuals inside to actually travel into the past. And another thing that indicates that is the color change that's always expressed in UFO reports, where it'll start as sort of a reddish color or an orangish color and then get brighter and brighter and then just disappear. And you would expect that with something spinning faster and faster, it would become more blue shifted as it went through the color spectrum and then disappear from our position in space-time as it moved backwards or forwards through it.
Hey, that would explain so much where these, because I've seen it myself, and the other the other aspect of my sightings is that I've always had multiple witnesses, if not hundreds, that were standing around me when these events have happened, where these craft, I don't know if they're us or them, that part doesn't matter. The phenomenon is that they just appear.
Right.
And then they disappear. Some don't, but there are so many sightings. Like I said, I'm just talking about personal experience. This isn't something that was told to me by somebody else or
Well, you're not
something.
alone. I compiled a whole list of these from very reputable, vetted sources that describe the exact same thing.
When we had this, you just mentioned the color blue, and I think colors are important here as well. But I haven't been able to get a consistent layout where, okay, this is happening and it's this color. When this is happening, it's another color. But they have been different colors. And we had this sighting, Mike, check this out. This was 2 years ago. And I'm going to conservatively say that I had 250 people standing around me at this moment.
Oh, wow.
And we were all sky watching together, night vision and things. And we're out in the desert. And behind us is another 2,000 people that were down at the bottom of the hill. Okay. Now, so above us, this craft lights up. It kind of blinked on. Now look up into the night sky, hold up your arms in front of you, and hold them 2 feet apart. That's how much of the sky this thing covered. It was miles, right? Okay, so this thing, and it's blue, and it flutters on, and it's going from right to left, and then it goes fully bright, and it's not high. It's a mile or two high, and it's blue. Aquamarine, actually, like a turquoise. And then it goes across, stops, it zags down, and goes back to the right a little bit, and then takes off to the left, and it carves in the sky the letter Z, like a Zorro swoosh. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. It lasted for about 3 seconds. Now, and then fluttered and blinked and disappeared. Now, at that moment, you have to ask yourself, what the hell was that? Right?
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Right? And
not something you see every day.
No, and everybody is screaming and yelling. It zigzagged, it z'd, it was blue, it was that was it, and the crowd is yelling and screaming, and it just appeared and then left. Right? It I don't know. And so what are we doing with that? It feels interdimensional. It feels like it came from somewhere. And then went back to wherever it was. It could have been. Now we go into the speculation. Was it something that is always there? It just came into our frequency for a brief moment, and then left, and it just vibrated at that moment, and it was a mistake, right? Yeah. It's always there.
A glitch in the matrix.
A glitch in the matrix, or was it something that was winking at us? That knew that we were there sky watching, that there were thousands of people down there for a UFO conference.
Yeah.
I don't know. Was it us from the future going, hey,
Well, what's interesting about that question and the context of people looking for something is Hawking did this same thing. He threw a party and didn't invite anybody. But
travelers, right?
Yeah, the time travelers. He was inviting, and nobody came to his party, so he said, "Oh, time travelers must not exist." And there's a lot wrong with that idea to start with. That would be an example of confirmation bias. I regret to say, because I really have a lot of respect for Stephen Hawking and his work, but that particular experiment, using air quotes, wasn't anything like that. But the point is the same, that if there is knowledge of this gathering of people in the future, and there is some willingness to accommodate, they know that that's happening because that's a part of their past. They can understand that this event is taking place. Hey, we're on our way to 5000 BC, but let's stop in at that particular time and amuse these people with the Zorro-Z in the sky. I mean, they could do that. Beings from a different planet wouldn't have that knowledge. They wouldn't have the ability just to pop in, make a Z, and then disappear. They would be coming from somewhere, going somewhere in our same recognizable place and space-time. Something that's going through our position in the fourth dimension would be able to pop in and out. And so many UFO accounts involve that popping in and out. They just showed up. A lot of them come from the sky, and it makes sense why historically and prehistorically we attach this notion of, these interplanetary, intersolar system travelers. But it's probably easier to spin your craft with less friction from the atmosphere up in space, and then once they attained the point in time that they were looking for, descend from the sky, and they came from the stars, so they're extraterrestrial. But there's a lot of things that can be explained that way using this extraterrestrial model that are sometimes harder to explain with an extraterrestrial model, I guess.
Now, with your research, just in archaeology and anthropology, have you seen anything where you went, okay, this is out of place, this shouldn't be here? You don't have to discuss it with your friends, but was there anything out of place that suggested to you that this was going on?
I mean, most of what I do is pre-cultural. I work with really early hominins. I did work at a Neanderthal site in this really cool area of southern France called Chépinot-Jonzac, and it was a Neanderthal site that was about 175,000 years ago, and that's really the only site where I worked with culture. Well, that's not true. I've worked with a lot of Native American artifacts here in Montana. I actually direct an archaeological dig, but in those sites, the artifacts we find, the features that we find, nothing really jumps out at me. There hasn't really been anything strange in those. It's all pretty normal for that time and place. There are certainly ones that raise more questions. Sort of a classic example is Nazca. I mean, you could have people doing that for any number of reasons. And again, when you see something like that, it's open for interpretation. And until we can go back in time and ask them, why are you doing this? We can't know. The very first place we would go would probably be Nazca to ask them, why are you doing this? And then they see us come down and say, I want you to come back. So I make a big astronaut character on the side of a mountain to see if you'll come back. Which comes back to the whole issue of influencing the past, even if you're not trying to. But I do talk about some of those in the book, cautiously examining certain archaeological features and artifacts that do seem to indicate something. People would usually add the word otherworldly here. I would say other timely. I need to work on that. That's not a very good word, but
no, I like that. Have you checked out the work of Michael Cremo?
I have not, but I actually have a big list going here of people that I'm going to check out tomorrow. So
okay, Michael Cremo, Cremo, Michael Cremo, and his research. Now he goes back. Now he stretches it, okay, but he goes back and suggests high technology and civilizations that have come and gone 1 billion years ago. 500 million years ago, not 4 million, not 3, not 65, but he goes back and he has got he has compiled different objects, hundreds, if not thousands, that have been surfaced around the world in different environments, such as you're going to have to go and check this out for yourself, but I'll throw something out there. A coal mine, 5 miles deep, and they find in coal that is 100 million years old, a screw. Right? Now, and again, I'm speaking... I'm just kind of making this up, but he's got a lot of different examples of this, and a lot from around the world, which suggests something really crazy. And for you, if you were, say, at this 175,000-year-old Neanderthal site in France, and you guys are digging around, and you see a cell phone in a Neanderthal's hands, I'm being facetious here. But what do you...
Well, that actually did happen. No, I'm serious. We were digging one of the best areas of the site where we found what are known as Mousterian of Acheulean tradition hand axes. The French switched those two words around. And all of a sudden we're finding like paper cups and forks and things. And we're like, well, I don't think Neanderthals had those. Turns out somebody dug a long drop right over that spot where we were digging and it ended right there. So not only did we have all this stuff, we had human waste seeping up through it. It was, anyway, that's not your point, but it did actually happen.
But if you found something like a metal axe at a Neanderthal site,
yeah, that would be mind-blowing. Absolutely. And we would publish it, and everybody would throw us out of academia for it. Yeah, it's unfortunate,
Right.
If you find something and you date it really, really well, this just happened, actually. They found some mammoth bones that, I think in California down there where you are, there were mammoth bones that look like they've been cut, but they dated to like 120,000 years ago or
that was
something.
in San Diego last year, yes.
Yeah, and they were saying that, humans who at the earliest maybe came here 30,000 years ago, maybe arrived 120, and everybody just went crazy. They said, no, it's not possible. It could never happen. And even if it didn't, give them some credit, check their data, check their dating methods, let it ride for a while, try to find some other sites. I think it's unfortunate that people are so quick to just jump all over anybody that says anything that deviates from the standard. It happened with Homo naledi down in South Africa. When they found that, they went a little over the top, saying that it was intentional burial and things like that, probably for media attention, which worked. But they didn't really know exactly what it was. They didn't have a date when they published the results. They didn't publish it in Nature or Science like they were supposed to. They didn't consult all the good old boys of paleoanthropology first. They just published what they had, said what they had to say, and people went nuts. And over time, they've kind of calmed down and accepted that Homo naledi is an actual specimen. Lee Berger isn't the Antichrist anymore. And it happens all the time. But yeah, if we did, we would definitely acknowledge that something else has happened there. And the issue with time travel, again, I don't think that they're looking to plant metal axes in Neanderthal sites. I think the intent is to not intervene in the past as much as possible. And there's still the question of how far back they can go. A lot of physicists don't think you can travel back in time farther than the first time machine when it was built.
Right.
I have to talk about that a lot in the book, obviously. Because
we're going to. I have to take a break right here. I actually want to address that because Einstein had no issues with traveling into the future.
Okay. Oh no, it's easy.
Okay. Well, we can do that. We do that every day. We're time traveling right now.
We are.
But going backwards, ginormous amounts of energy. That's the first idea here.
Yeah.
But that it is basically impossible. But then he had the whole time loop issue, which mathematically worked. So there was that too as well. I'm looking at one of the most disturbing pictures in Twitter. Whoever tweeted that's Eric. That is the craziest picture. I'm not going to bother you with this, Michael. It's but
I'm scared to look.
No. It's not that. But it's this is Fade to Black. That's nuts, Eric. Our guest tonight, Dr. Michael P. Masters. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Hi everybody, this is Rob Halford, the Metal Guard on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station. Salt Lake City, Utah. Van Buren, Arkansas.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now for a special radio offer from Angioprim. That's angioprim.com/radio. ANGIOPRIM. Angioprim.com/radio or call 877-882-7221. That's 877-882-7221.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on the smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Your contact for current news and trending topics. KGRARadio.com.
What can I say about the most popular tea on the internet? And what do customers say about Life Change Tea at GetTheTea.com? A lot. But by federal law, we at GetTheTea.com cannot make claims to how this product can enhance your health. We cannot even post our testimonies without being in compliance. So how do we get past the hump? Try our products at GetTheTea.com and see for yourself. You can send us a testimony, but we just can't post it. Bummer. Our products are GMO-free and organic. We pride ourselves in being the best we can be, and we urge you to take charge of your health. We're 11 years strong, and many of our customers have shared their successes with friends and family. Protect your colon. Log on to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. GetTheTea.com. GetTheT.com.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of Fade to Black by just calling 605-562-4482. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Just call 605-562-4482. You can listen to me, Jimmy Church, on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Go Beckley Tappy.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why fade to black? Because you never got that pony, damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. You can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Our guest tonight, Dr. Michael P. Masters. You can follow him on Twitter at MorphoTime, MORPHO Time, at MorphoTime. It's right there. And you mentioned, Dr. Masters, you mentioned earlier Nazca. Have you had a chance to check out Maria, the three-fingered, three-toed mummy from Nazca?
I have not.
Okay. I'll send you some links. Okay, so yeah, it's pretty interesting. You need to go and look at their research, and their DNA results are coming in now. 1,800 years old, 3 fingers, 3 toes, long fingers too. 3 fingers, 3 toes. They've got all of the MRIs and X-rays, and all of that is posted up in videos. This is with Gaia Television, and they've got a pretty interesting video series. This was revealed, I'm going to guess and say November 2017. The research is ongoing, but you know, anthropology and anatomy and archaeology and everything that you study and teach, this is something that you should take a look at. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, no, you've definitely piqued my interest. I hadn't heard of that, but anything with 3 fingers or 3 toes, it's definitely worth looking into.
Yeah, kind of hard. You mentioned Egyptian mummies. You've done a numerous amount of digs. If you could, is it possible to construct a 3-fingered, 3-toed, I'm talking about the bones and everything, and cover it with 2,000-year-old skin and somehow fooled anthropologists and fool yourself? Could you pull that off?
I mean, skin definitely shrinks up over time. I don't know why you would in the first place. That's probably the biggest question. But, I mean, I don't know.
You think you could pull it off? Okay.
Yeah, with technology from, 2,000 years ago, you said? 1,800 years ago? I mean, they would have had stone tools, likely obsidian, which is pretty sharp. It's sharper than
I'm asking today. Could you do it today?
No, you couldn't do that.
Okay.
I thought you meant back then.
Back then.
Cut off a couple of fingers.
Right. Well, back then you got fresh skin, right?
Yeah, right. That's what I was imagining. But no, I don't think you could do that now in any logistically feasible way.
No, it'd be impossible.
Yeah. And then you're right. The stratigraphy, 2,000 years where it would have to be underground, you'd be able to see where they dug to put it there. No, that wouldn't be possible.
Okay. All right. Well, that answers that. Let's get back to time travel. Okay.
Yeah.
So, as as you are writing this, are you discussing time travel with others around you, professional academics?
Absolutely. Yeah. What's interesting about that is that we have another social network for academics called ResearchGate, which kind of keeps track of our publications and how interested people are, and then makes us feel worse about ourselves when people aren't as interested, because it gives us a score, and then we can compare that to other people who we emulate. In any case, I posted on there a pretty simple question a few months ago about how physicists view time in the context of landscape block time, which naturally, an implication of that is that there isn't really the opportunity for free will if everything that is and
that's right
was and ever will be, there can't be decisions. You feel like you're making decisions, and 90% of physicists, even though they know they don't make decisions, they feel like they do. And we talk about, what do we want to do for dinner? What do you want to do next weekend? And we discuss things even though we know that we're not really deciding.
And that goes for you too.
It does, and it's really changed my perception of time and my understanding of not just time but energy. I see things happen. We went out fishing on this great river the other day, and whenever you catch a fish, it's exciting. You have this emotion, and you feel happy, and you're fighting this animal, and it elicits very positive emotions. On the way up, my daughter and I, for no reason whatsoever, got in this huge fight, and we're screaming at each other. And I remember thinking after that, well, that's at least 2 fish worth of fighting, because the negative energy from that emotional conflict is counterbalanced by the positive energy from the fish. And it's just the way I kind of view time and experience now, that it's not, me doing something that has this effect, but rather I'm just living through it and I understand it. And it's something that, as it turns out, people have very strong opinions about, because once I posted this on ResearchGate, within a couple days, there were physicists and philosophers and anthropologists and all these people from all these different fields just writing, 1,000-word essays about time and about free will, and it was amazing to me. Like, people really care about this, and it provided me an instant and actually free way of getting a lot of different viewpoints from a lot of different people in a lot of different fields about what time is to them in a philosophical sense, in a physical sense, and what free will is, how determinism plays into their lives, and how they reconcile that lack of free will with the everyday feeling that they're making decisions. So yeah, I that was a great opportunity to discuss this with a lot of people in a forum that I didn't ever expect would be so fruitful.
Well, do you think that you have free will?
No, I don't.
See, and isn't that okay? Have you talked to Leonard Susskind about this?
I have not, but I'm writing it down right now.
Okay. When you get into conversations with these different theoretical physicists or string theorists, where, string theorists will tell you, well, string theory's never been proven wrong. It's always been right. and you have that, and then you have the others out there, the theoretical physicists and astrophysicists, where they're talking about math.
Right.
And math is just math. And things from the Big Bang forward are just math. Things played out and the math works, and the math will continue to work, and everything in the future is already there because the math is going to say it is so. And that's a disturbing thought. When
it is, yeah.
It's a disturbing thought, because there are those out there that are going to go, you know what, today I was going to have a cheeseburger, but then I decided to have a chicken salad, and I changed my mind. That was free will. And then you have the other side that's going to say that was math playing out.
Yeah.
You were going to do that anyway. You think it's free will.
You know, the most enlightening thing about reading and all of those posts and commenting and discussing, and I was amazed how quickly it blew up, and I just kind of let it ride. Like I would dip in every now and then to sort of get the conversation back on track. But by the end of it, there were like 75 comments from these researchers from all over the world. And the most insightful thing for me that came out of it is it comes down to one thing. There's people that have a future-oriented perspective, and there's people that have a past-oriented perspective. And if you are living in this moment, this now, which now doesn't exist, St. Augustine, Einstein, people have talked about that for a long time. There is no now. But if you're looking forward, it feels like there's all of these possibilities. There's all of these things you could choose to do to change your life, to become something different. But in the end, there's only one outcome. If you look back at it, there's only one thing that actually happened. And of course, you know, there's the multiverse model, and there's this idea that there's all of these other universes where all of these infinite other things happen. But in the only one we know, only one thing happened. And that is the biggest divide, I think, is that, you know, the mathematicians, the physicists understand it not as just looking back, but even looking forward. Eventually, that looking back, it's already there. It already exists. But and there's a psychological part too. People really want to feel like they're making decisions. They really want to feel like they have control. Me personally, I love it. I love, it's almost like, you know, you're going on a long road trip. You don't have to drive. You're just sitting there, you know, drinking your coffee in the passenger seat, looking at the beautiful mountains, and you're along for the ride. And I find that liberating, but a lot of people really, really, really don't like that.
Now, okay, before I let you say goodnight, I want to talk about parallel worlds. Because when we deal on the quantum level, Silicon Valley is going to tell you that parallel worlds exist. As science fiction as that may sound to most, for quantum computing to even operate, those qubits are affecting other qubits, right? In another at great distances in infinite, right?
My understanding of quantum entanglement and quantum computing is that the manipulation of these particles here causes an effect because they're entangled, but still in our universe, still in our dimension, I guess. And that's not an area that I've investigated to really any extent. But my understanding of quantum computing is that a change that you elicit here, I mean, a 1 and a 0, that's all computers are. You make a 1 here, it makes a 1 over there, and a different computer on the other side of the world, but still in our position in space-time. And I could be wrong about that. I'll admit that it's not something I know a lot about. But the multiverse is, it's interesting. It's there's a big debate there, too. I mean, the same way that anthropologists fight about the out of Africa and the multi-regionalist model, there's a big debate among physicists about the multiverse interpretation as well, string theory. It'll be a while probably before we really know. I think a lot of things are like that in physics right now.
Well, that's right. But anybody from the future in a vast amount of the future, I mean, way out, 10,000, 20,000, a million years in the future, understands all of this.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's the biggest reason that peer reviewer had me write that is we just can't know right now. And the whole focus of the book is a realistic perspective of what we can know and what we can't. How much we can project forward from past cultural changes, changes in technology, changes in human evolution. And then again, because it's time travel, you have this issue of loops forming between the future and the present. Like what if, that crash in Roswell in 1947 really did occur? We're instantly exposed to technology that exists very far in our future that influences the formation of that very technology in the future. These loops, and it creates the question of who invented it, who invented that technology. And there's a lot of questions like that come into the conversation when you have time travel, when you have connections across the fourth dimension.
Well, do you think a lot of things happened in 1947? Of course,
it was a big year.
Yeah, it was a big year. It was a very, very, very big year. I made a list. This was a few years ago, but I went through, and it took me a while, but I went through and just looked at all of the events of 1947, and I had about 200. And yeah, and so we have the technology side, we have the philosophical side, we have the government and political side, and the geopolitical side. A lot of things happened culturally in 1947. And you have to go back and say, well, what was the other big thing? What could have caused this? And it seems it's like Occam's razor, right? Well, you've got that crash at Roswell. And could it be just that? So many things happened in 1947.
I mean, Project Saucer, Project Sign, they were established in 1948. Project Grudge that grew out of that. It does, and these aren't conspiracy things. Like the people involved in this, the actual programs are very widely acknowledged by the people that were involved in them. It's public knowledge now, but. And that's another aspect of the time travel thing, is that if you're instantly, and this would kind of go for extraterrestrial technology too, if it is more advanced than us, and it would have to be for them to even be able to get here. But if you instantly come into the possession of technology that's far more advanced than your own, that gives you a huge benefit in warfare. It gives you a huge benefit in national security. I mean, the military-industrial complex, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Like, they must have been thinking about the money they could make from reverse engineering this and selling it to all of these people across the world as well. And there was a lot going on then in 48, 49. And, yeah, I mean, correlation doesn't equal causality, but there's a lot of evidence that crash did happen in 1947. And if they were gifted future technology, with our own technology, we could understand how these things would evolve, how they would be built on top of what we have, and then come to understand them in a deeper capacity. I'm sure the people that have worked on that, I'm sure they understand that device is capable of time travel. I mean, you can go up on all those mountains around all the parts of the desert in Nevada and Utah and watch these things zipping around the sky. But beyond those vector trajectory inflate capabilities, I'm sure somebody understands that they are also capable of time travel if this interpretation is correct.
Do you think that those time travelers, I don't know if you've addressed this in the book, but do you think that they are in contact with the military-industrial complex and the Pentagon and Washington?
Yeah, I mean, I talk about that a little bit. Again, chapter 11, chapter 12, a little more speculative, but because I can't know. I was never invited down there. I don't know what they have, if they have anything at all. But if that happened, there's, that autopsy video, which would be great to talk about sometime too, because a lot of the book focuses on that. And even though it's a reproduction of what supposedly was actually videotaped at that time, it's extremely revealing too. The things that they recreated in that being are very indicative of a future human for a lot of reasons that I can't get into right now. But if there were individuals that had died, if there are, I guess according to some reports, one was still even alive, badly injured. I don't know. But it does kind of make you wonder if there would have been some sort of contact afterwards, someone that, came to acknowledge what happened or inform what had happened. But again, I really have no way of knowing personally. It just kind of seems like that's, if I took a bunch of my colleagues back and some of them died, I would probably try to make some sort of connection I guess. But I don't know. That's just personal speaking, I guess.
If you had a choice, how far in the future would you go? There's a reason why I'm asking. Would you go 10,000, 100,000 years into the future?
Well, I feel like this is a trap all of a sudden. I feel like...
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, that's a tough one. I haven't really thought about it. I would probably go...
1 million?
I would probably go about 100,000 years in the future.
Yeah, that's a good number. I like that number too. And the reason is, do you think, this is where I set you up, do you think that we would even have these bodies?
Yeah, I do. And that's a tough thing about writing this book, is that I know very well what changes have taken place in our bodies, in our morphological form over time. I wrote my whole dissertation about it. Many of my publications have looked at these changes over time. Projecting those forward, however, is very different. And it was really hard for me in writing this book because I had a subtitle at one point, Identified Flying Objects, Who, When, in bigger letters, Why. Like, why would we do this? When, not where. Who are these, what I think are people in the future? But then I started thinking about the when question, and it's been an accelerating change over time.
Right.
Our brains have gotten bigger faster. Our faces have gotten smaller faster. And in fact, our brains have shrunk over the last 10,000 years.
They've shrunk, yes. They've shrunk.
So over the long term, yes, our skulls are changed. It's more about shape than about size, really. But then when I started to think, about saying what will look like in 10,000 years, 50,000 years, 100,000 years, which is actually why I said 100,000 years, is because I think that's when we would really start to see major differences. And it also plays into the question of what time are we coming back from? When we see individuals with these characteristics, is it indicative of 100,000, 500,000, 1 million years in the future? And if we have the capability of traveling through time, we would also have the capability of possibly collaborating with researchers from other times. Maybe having people in one UFO that represent 6 different time periods, and they would all have different morphological characteristics as a result of that. And it also comes back to the question of races and physiological differences. If those carry into the future, are we seeing intratemporal variation in their physical form, or are we seeing intertemporal variation because of collaboration across different time periods? And I think, it's hard to know for sure, but I do think in 100,000 years we would look different than we do now. You would be the alien. I would be the alien.
Do you think, and that's not that much of a reach, do you think you did that 100,000-year travel that you would even recognize humans?
Yeah, definitely. There's certain physical traits, what we call unique derived characteristics of hominins that are very recognizable. I mean, down to the cusps of the teeth. We can identify a tooth because of the cusp pattern and the root pattern of something that's 5 million years old. We have a very deep knowledge of the morphological characteristics of the hominin lineage. So seeing any of those traits would definitely indicate that. And like I said previously, it's a big part of the book is just talking about how unique these are on our planet. How all of the different variables that went into making us the way we are here over the last 3.7 billion years of life and 65 million years of mammalian evolution and 6 million years of hominin evolution, for that to happen in the exact same way on another planet with different gravity, a different climate, different distance from its sun, different chemical composition, it's extremely unlikely that would ever happen again somewhere else, that we would ever be visited by something that was bipedal, that had a big bald head, that had big eyes, that had a tiny chin, a tiny mouth. And to me, that's one of the biggest indications that a time travel explanation is preferable to a space travel explanation.
But what about, the basic chemistry of the universe, amino acids and carbon? Wouldn't DNA just evolve the same anywhere?
That's a big question in astrobiology. It's the coding system of all life on Earth, which very much indicates common ancestry. We're all derived from the same unicellular organisms 3.7 billion years ago. But would it happen on another planet? Would there be another nucleotide or 4 extra nucleotides or something completely dissimilar to nucleotides? It's not something I think we can know right now. And when we find life on other planets, which I really hope we do, and I'm very excited about, we'll be able to answer some of those questions, I think.
And one basic question as we wind this down. It's probably the biggest. I would love to have Richard Dawkins on this show. And I would love to have him on for a bunch of different reasons, because I think that he's fundamentally wrong and flawed on everything that he has written and said. He's a very smart guy. He's much smarter than me. But I just think he's wrong. And this is one basic point. I don't understand how DNA in general was created by chance, by nature. I don't know what the odds are, right? I don't know what that number is, but it's got to be a humongously large number that somehow lightning struck some amino acids on a crystal in a creek at one day, and the DNA just pops out.
Yeah.
I don't get that. I don't see where evolution or odds or nature comes into play unless there was something. I don't want to go divine. I don't want to go God, but it seems intelligent to me, and I don't want to go down that road either, but I don't have a real answer for it because DNA is beautiful. It's extraordinarily perfect.
Mm-hmm. And in the same way you talked about earlier, how there may have been, other civilizations that came and went. There may have been a lot of other forms of life that just didn't work. I mean, the basic aspect of life is that it can reproduce itself, and DNA is really great for that. You can split open a double helix, and you can have these free-floating nucleotides come in and make the exact same thing, just another copy of it. And that's the power of DNA. There may have been things before that didn't work. There's an interesting theory about entropy and the origins of life. It's something that astrobiologists focus on a lot, and there's a lot of really interesting research coming out about that, about what is it about DNA? What is it a given on all planets? Will it always happen? And then, like you said, there's a lot of people who believe that there's some divine intervention or some other intervention. And like I said at the start of the night, it doesn't have to be black or white. It doesn't have to be one way or the other. That doesn't have to be fighting. You can understand all aspects of evolution and how it works and the process of evolution, and still understand that in the context of Genesis and the Christian belief system and the Judeo belief system and all of these other beliefs about how life started and who's responsible for it. They don't have to be mutually exclusive in any way whatsoever.
Which way do you lean?
In respect to what?
In creation, on DNA. I need answers.
I mean, I was raised as a very standard Judeo-Christian sort of background. I think there's some things we can't know. There's obviously a lot of interpretations. There's a lot of beliefs. that it's important to differentiate between belief and science, but that doesn't mean that you can't understand the science in the context of your beliefs. There doesn't have to be a divide there. And me personally, I understand the Judeo-Christian origins, the book of Genesis, very well because I was raised with that interpretation. I also understand the process of evolutionary change very well because I studied it as part of my Ph.D. and I still use it in a everyday work today. And I guess to answer your question, I see room for some sort of understanding, higher power within that. I don't necessarily go to church, but I also don't dismiss the idea. And honestly, if you look at the book of Genesis, book of Peter as well, the way it's described is very much the way that we understand the origins of the solar system and the evolution of life. It's written, and again, it comes down to time. In the book of Genesis, it was 7 days. As we understand it, it was 4.5 billion for the Earth and 14.7 billion for the universe. So they're not necessarily in conflict with one another. They're just different ways of understanding and then believing as well.
Well, I had a friend. We were in New York City, and we had like a 6-hour, one of those famous 6-hour conversations in a restaurant till 4:00 in the morning.
Yeah, those are fun.
Yes, and he, great guy, totally cool. He's a friend of mine to this day, but Christian. I mean Christian. And he said to me, looked at me right in my eyeballs and said, I said, well, what about dinosaur bones? And he said, man, God put those there to test our faith.
The devil put them there.
Right.
What I was told growing up.
Right,
the devil put them there to test us.
Yeah, to test us. And now here you are in the south of France with a 175,000-year-old Neanderthal. That's in a direct conflict of everything.
No, it's not, though. I mean, it's just again an issue of time. I mean, the Adam and Eve story, it's a belief system. It's an idea about a way of understanding creation, but there's a way that it happened. It was a slower process. It involved a lot of incremental change over time. One thing changing into another thing that changed into another thing, but inevitably it resulted in us. It resulted in anatomically modern Homo sapiens sapiens. So if somebody wants to pick one point and say, well, that's when we started, and it started with two people, and there's obviously some logistical issues with that, incest and whatnot, but if you want to pick that point and say that's when it started, in the context of the whole book of Genesis, it's still a part of how we understand the science behind the evolution of the universe and Earth and life. They don't have to be mutually exclusive. I think a lot of it comes from people like that who say, well, it's the devil that did this, and that's it. That's it.
Yeah, completely black or white.
Yeah, there's no room for discussion here. That's it. And I teach evolution. That's my job. I've been doing it for years. I've done it in community colleges. I taught at a Catholic school just outside of Columbus, Dominican or something like that.
You taught evolution at a Catholic school?
I did. They hired me to teach sociology, and I said, all right, well, that should be easy. And then they wanted me to teach anthropology, and I told them, I was like, well, there's no way to do this without evolution. I mean, that's sort of the basis of all biological life. And they said, yeah, no problem. But honestly, most of the conflict, I guess I should say, came from people who just really didn't want to hear it. Even though I'm very open to all views, even though I understand their belief because I was raised in a very, very, very conservative Christian household, I understand it. I think that helps me talk to them better because I can talk to them in a way where where it's a collaborative mutual understanding. But the problem comes when people just don't want to hear it. They just don't want to know because they think it interferes with their belief system. Okay,
one last question, and I know you're busy, but I just got to take advantage of this opportunity here. Is this, when we are talking about, you mentioned the multiverse, let's stay in the Milky Way for a second, and we look at our own area around us, where we didn't understand how big it was and how much was there even 30 years ago, let alone 100. But now we have the Hubble telescope. We're able to see, what were stars are now we thought were stars are actually galaxies. Right. And it's much bigger than we thought. Now we have a situation here in our own Milky Way where we're dealing with somewhere between 500 and 1 trillion stars. We now know about the amount of exoplanets from the data that we have collected in the last 10 years, where we are looking at somewhere between 20 and 40 billion rocky planets in our own Milky Way.
Potentially, yeah.
Potentially. These are ginormous, ridiculous numbers. They are. So now, with your peers, the conversations that Carl Sagan had and the Drake equation and other things are completely out the window now. With your peers, the conversation of, are we alone in the universe? What is it? Is it 99%? Now where your peers are going to say, of course there's life out there. It's not a little bit. There's lots and lots of it. I mean, how does that conversation go today?
Yeah, there's definitely life on other planets. The fact that it happened here so soon after Earth became conducive to life indicates that it probably happened other places too. How it actually happened, that lightning strike in a pond of sludge or whatever, that's still kind of a sticky wicket. But in general, I don't think there's any doubt that there's life on other planets. The focus of this book is, could life on other planets evolve to look like us? Could we ever find them in the vastness of even our own universe, let alone other universe? The distance between them more or less prohibits any sort of travel between. And a big part of that comes down to time dilation, what we talked about earlier with Einstein's theory of special relativity. Just traveling at a rate of speed that's necessary to get you to another planet, another solar system, even Alpha Centauri, one of the closest ones to us, is going to have a massive effect on the passage of time, to where when you come home, even though maybe 20 years passed to you, something like 1,000 years passed on Earth. Now everybody that you knew is dead. The communication, the time it would take for communication between these planets and different solar systems, just there's a lot of improbability associated with the idea that life, even though it certainly exists somewhere, that it would ever evolve to look like us, that we would ever find it, that we would ever be able to travel there, they would be able to travel here. In the context of the UFO phenomenon, I think it's incredibly improbable that they're from a different planet, even anywhere close to our own solar system.
Thank you so much, Michael. Fascinating conversation. And after the book is released, we'll get you back. We left so much stuff out there that we didn't have the time to get into tonight, and we'll do it again. Thank you so much. Are you teaching tomorrow?
I teach online classes in the summer. We'll get back to it in about a month as far as the in-class classes. But thank you so much for having me. It's been a really great conversation. I've enjoyed talking to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And behave, okay? I mean, look,
I'll try my best.
Yeah, you're out there. You're ruffling those feathers, and I commend you for that. We need more of this in the professional world to go and take chances and ask questions. And I just don't think that there's not enough of it. I don't think there's any of it out there. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Great conversation. Michael P. Masters. Now, his website is right there at jimmychurchradio.com. You need to go and check it out. It's ID Fly Object. Okay, ID FLYOBJ.com. The links are right there. You can go read about the book and order it. Get it when it comes out. It's Fade to Black. I'll open up the phone lines when I come back.
Here, and you are listening to my boy Jimmy Church on jimmychurchradio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter,
but listening to Jimmy Church will.
Hurricanes, earthquakes, wildfires. This year we've experienced more than our fair share. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and last month I decided to make sure my family does not have to worry about food should we get caught in a real emergency situation. Introducing Numana, a healthy, storable product that tastes so good that you'll want to eat it every day instead of just during those times of duress. All Numana products have a 25-year shelf life, are MSG and GMO-free, no preservatives, and are made in America. With the Numana pack in your home, you'll be able to sleep at night knowing that you've protected your family. Not only have I tasted and tested, I own it. Now you can too. Just click on the Numana banner on jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code Jimmy when you order. In addition to a discount, we'll send you an autographed Fade to Black t-shirt. Seriously, go Beckley Teppy. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Yes, River Moon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy.
Hey, can we talk about something serious for a minute? Your age. Getting old has its perks. But remember, being a few years younger, you know, your hair was thicker, you didn't have so many wrinkles, that extra weight wasn't haunting you, and you just felt better. Well, we can't turn back the clocks and go back 10 or 15 years, but you can start feeling and looking 10 or 15 years younger with Nature's Youth RSF. It's a doctor-formulated daily supplement that helps your body maintain its peak performance and fight the aging process. Imagine sleeping better, looking better, and feeling better. See how Nature's Youth RSF has helped thousands of people just like you at nature'syouth.com. nature'syouth.com. The holidays are coming. Imagine how it will feel when your family and friends are asking you what you did to look so good. Your secret will be Nature's Youth RSF. It's time to start looking better and feeling better. Learn more and order your Nature's Youth RSF at nature'syouth.com. That's nature'syouth.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRAradio.com.
This is KJCR at jimmychurchradio.com.
There you go. That was amazing. Michael P. Masters. Now, Morpho Time is right there on Twitter, so you can follow him there. The website is idflyobj.com, right? Identify Flying Objects. It's right there. The links are at jimmychurchradio.com. And now, I've opened up the phone lines. I'll get to the calls here in just a second. But before I do, the most interesting thing, now, lots of it tonight, I get that, but pretty interesting idea that is laid out here, which is that the abductions, contact, cattle mutilations, experiments, testing, all of these things are indicative of something that we would need to do with ourselves, and we wouldn't travel the universe to do that. That makes you just stop and think right there. It does, doesn't it? Think about that. Now, I can go back to what Peniston had said and other aspects, but if you go off of that and think about one other thing, and I want to give credit to Nick Redfern years ago, said this at a conference. He was on a panel I was hosting. And he said one thing that it never escaped me, which is that these craft are too small. You know, you're not going to travel the universe in those, that they probably come from right here in our own solar system. You know, they don't have the size, the fuel, multiple hundreds or thousands of people, that these are small craft, that they probably are parked somewhere here in our solar system. Well, if you take that idea and you apply it to what Dr. Masters had said today, well, yeah, maybe these craft are some of them, most of them, are just us. They're already here. That is interesting. And then when you put the other aspect into it, which is what he's an anthropologist, right? So when you look at that side of it, that, upright, eyes, ears, nose, mouth, hands, feet, walking, and from the future, we would have evolved into something else, maybe multiple. And he brought up one other point that is a fascinating one, that maybe there are different elements of time that are here. We're looking at different stages of evolution from the future, where we think it's multiple races and species from off planet because they're from different points in time in the future coming back here. And which caused me to ask the question, if we went into the future, if he did or if I did, and we went 100,000 years into the future, we're the aliens. We're the ET. Yeah, fascinating conversation. Let me grab some of these phone calls. Let's go to area code 408 first.
Hi, Jimmy. It's Deb from Sacramento.
Hi, Deb. How are you?
Good. How are you doing tonight?
Well, you tell me. That was amazing.
Yeah, kind of mind-blowing. I'm okay with the idea that it's us in the future coming back to tweak us and help us evolve. The only thing that I kind of couldn't resonate with is I understand why his website got all that traffic with the comments about possibly not having free will. And here's where I have the problem. You can always go back to the religious thing, and God created us, and in the Bible it says he gave man free will. Okay, if you throw that whole thing out and you just go to the spiritual side, which our community, I would say most of it, believes in evolving ourselves spiritually to a next level so that we can join space and we can join all of these other beings and other planets and everything, and we talk about that a lot. Well, how can we evolve if we're just along for the ride and we have no free will? Then why are we this big experiment? Why are we even bothering? And why do we even reincarnate to try to develop and get it right if there's no free will?
Right.
That's where I have a little say.
Yeah.
So that's a big conundrum there.
Well, it is. It is. And then there's this. This is where it sounds harsh. Okay, it does. But what if you accepted the idea of free will is real, right? But it's an illusion. In that, free will is just part of the math equation. That's all, so wrap your head around that for a second. In that, the spirituality aspect and the evolution of getting to that point and contact with other light beings and interdimensional and space travel, and it seems like the illusion is that was a big road traveled of free will to get to that point, but that it was math anyway, and we were going to get there. And whatever happens to the Earth in a million years, where we think we've made corrections in the environment and we've evolved spiritually, but it was just all the math playing it out anyway. And so the free will part there is great, and you want to think that you have free will and go and make all those decisions that you want to do for yourself and grow spiritually, but it was math playing it out the whole time. I know, and it's harsh to look at it that way. It is.
Yeah, that's hard to wrap your mind around too.
Look,
there you go.
Well, when you listen to some of these physicists and theoretical physicists where they discuss this, that the way that we got here now, and that goes all the way back with religion and the things that happened 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years ago, and how we evolved here to be the beings that we are today. It's just the way it's chemicals, it's math. It's just the way that it is. It's gravity. It's the expansion of the universe. It's everything. It was inevitable. That's all. It's just math, and you can't change it. Free will seems like it's there, but the future is planned. It's a mathematical equation.
That's going to put Tony Robbins out of business, honey.
but he's
you know Tony Robbins is, right?
Yeah. He has great teeth, too.
Anyway,
great.
I just wanted to throw that in as a joke. I don't let you go because I want you to be able to grab another call, Jim, before we run out of time. But lots to think about.
Yeah, you understand what I'm saying, And it's hard for me to accept as well. Okay, it just is. But I listen to everybody, and I just try to figure out the big questions like everybody else. And when you look, when you go and listen to somebody like I brought him up today, Leonard Susskind, listen to Leonard, and he's a bright guy, and he's got the most open mind of just about anybody you can imagine. And just go and listen to him. It's tough. It's tough. Thank you so much, Deb. We'll see you tomorrow night.
Thank you, Jimmy. Absolutely. Take care.
Thank you. Great phone call. Yeah, I know. It's tough. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
Yeah. Good morning or good evening, Jimmy. This is Phil Christophers here in the Pacific Northwest.
How are you?
Oh, I am doing great, Jimmy. It's been a tweet storm for me today. I've been throwing stuff out. So I want to throw this out to you guys that I wrote down. Is that basically I see free will this way, is because with psychics, they can only predict the future, 60 to 70, 85%, right? So they're never straight on. So to me, if they can't get to 100%, then there's got to be free will. There's got to be something that changes what they're seeing. Do you see where I'm going here?
Well, I do. And it goes back to, look, I totally get it. And just like what Mike had said earlier, when I asked him if he had free will, and his answer was no. I feel like I do, but the outcome is inevitable. And you only have one outcome in the end. And I know it sounds like you did you had all of the free will in the world to get to that one outcome, but the outcome is inevitable, and it's math that dictates that. And the math works. See, that's the other thing. And when you get into all of this,
well, is this the math that says that it's all a hologram, and that's what you're talking about, right?
Well, there's that. Well, that's part of it. Well, okay, that's something that's fascinated me, and I've done so much research into that in the last few years. It's driving Rita crazy. But that's another part of it. I would like to think that my conversation tonight, not only with my guests, but with you right now, is free will. The decisions that I'm making right now to speak to you in answer to your questions is free will. Then there's the other part of it that says that it was all everything that I just thought of right now, including this very sentence in the now is predetermined. It's math. You know, and I don't.
I'm sorry, Jimmy. I have a problem with this because as a Reiki master, I have a thing I call the Reiki distant. And what that does is I can start the healing back at the point of the time. So I'm changing the past to affect the future.
Yes, okay. And look, I've got 15 seconds I have to actually run. But you're a Reiki master, right?
Right.
That was inevitable.
No, I could have gone a different way.
You thought you could have. So think about that, Phil. We'll see you tomorrow night on the show.
Okay. All righty, man. Take care.
All right. Yep. Bye-bye. And so that's exactly my point. That's exactly my point. And that was Mike's point, too. You know, the end result was inevitable. I know. You got to love it. And that's why I like going through 3 hours on this show, because I learned so much along with all of you. Fascinating conversation tonight. I really enjoyed all of it. And tomorrow night, everybody get ready. You know what's going to go down right here. Ouija board live with Karen A. Dahlman. You're not going to want to miss that. So, yeah, we'll do it tomorrow night. If you want to post something up on Twitter, if you want to send me an email, maybe we'll even take some phone calls. All right, but we're going to do it live right here tomorrow night, finally, with Karen A. Dahlman, Ouija, all night on Fade to Black. I do want to remind everybody before I get out of here, get your meals ordered. Get your meals ordered. Soul Tech up at ECETI. Get it done. Fade to Black's executive producer is Rita Camarion. Show is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee, Dennis, and Bob. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vito, and Mark D. Kovar. Webmaster, Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and syndication is KGRA, The Planet. It's broadcast owned and copyrighted 2018 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Until tomorrow night, I want everybody to be safe. Go Beckley Tappy.